anyhow. So thank you again and welcome everybody. It's the Making Meaning of Year 2020 workshop. It's an astrological perspective, and as I said, it's about year 2020, even though we already in, kind of like lived through more than half of it. I felt that because of the importance and because of the transformations that are happening this year, I wanted for us to get into it deeper so that we don't skip that step, so that we don't think, oh, well, it's a wrong year, let's just wait until 2021 comes and then something better will happen, because 2020 has a lot of lessons for us, and if we don't learn them, we may kind of get stuck, or things may become even worse than they may be seemingly to us right now. So 2020 is an important year, and I will go in depth about how important it is and why, and what it offers to us. That's why I'm offering this workshop, even though we're already in almost October of this year. Plus, the fall is the fall of 2020 is extremely important, is very serious, and it's even more intense than all other months before. So I thought that it would be a good to kind of bring this empowering perspective to you. And of course, I'm a human being in, I'm soul, but a human being in this life and in this body right now. I have a limited perspective, even though I'm trying, it's constantly widening. Still, my limited perspective may not resonate with you, and that's totally fine. And that's another thing that we will be talking today about. There's no one truth if we're talking from eyes of a human being. There's no one truth. All right, so making meaning of year 2020. Let's see. So 2020, I'd like to kind of start this by asking you to think, to contemplate whether what for you this year has been represented. Is it a year of chaos? Is it a year of opportunity? If somebody wants to speak, to that, but even if you don't want to speak, I'd like to ask you, what do you see it? Is it a year of opportunity, or is it a year of chaos? I hear a lot of people saying that, it's been so difficult, so that something is wrong. Whenever there is this feeling of things being difficult, challenging, there's conflict, we feel like there's something wrong, that it should not be that way. So I wanted to kind of dwell into it a little bit before we move in further. And if anyone wants to mention their personal experience, not so much circumstantial, but their feelings of the year, you're welcome to do so right now. Okay, it seems like everyone is just kind of thinking of that. So your impression, and I want to go ahead and tell you that I feel like with this question, I put it intentionally in a way that we often hear questions. It's either or. We often present it with this kind of situations where you have to like choose either this or that. And it is a dualistic trap. And in reality, that's, I call it a trap because the answer lies somewhere behind or above or beyond these two options that are presented to us. So the short answer from my perspective would be that it is a year of chaos and a year of opportunity and a year of much more. So it's not either or, it's both and more. This is not my phrase, I've heard it from somebody, and I kind of like it because it really represents the our human experience, that because we're such binary creatures, we kind of tend to just kind of go into one side or another, seeing everything in black and white. So this is a chaotic year, but in chaos, it's almost an organized chaos in which opportunities arise. So what is going on in terms of these kind of astrological aspects? You know, what's going on in this world, and why we kind of feeling it so strongly. In terms of the astrological alignments, we have something that's very rare, and it is happening this year. And not only it's even more rare because there is a lot of rare components come together all in 1 year. So one is that we have three planets of power and a south node, and the planets of power are Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn are with south node, and they meet in Capricorn. um, Shortly I called it as crumbling of old power structures. And right now this is kind of just an introduction. I will go deeper into each of those components as I progress through my presentation. The Neptune square lunar node. So it is Neptune that having a very tense conversation with lunar nodes, and I see it as some sort of human mutation, evolution, but also waking up into a dream. And by waking up into a dream, I mean maybe you've experienced that before, where you have this bad dream and then you waking up, and then later you realize that you were still dreaming when you woke up, and then you wake up again and you think, oh, but this is real, and then you realize that you're still dreaming. So this year and beyond, we will continually be kind of waking up thinking, oh, I know it, I got it, I grasped the, you know, whatever is going on, the reality, and then it kind of will be going away from us, and then we will be jumping into the new level. There are personal planets that are in retrograde. This is not such a rare occasion, but because they're personal planets, and both of them retrograde at the same year. Well, Venus and Mars in particular, what I mean, because Neptune, Mercury, of course, we know retrogrades every year, 3 times a year. But Venus and Mars being in retrograde, meaning that personally it is time for introspection. It is not a time to start something new. There is no energy behind us, you know, behind the projects that we initiate. They will not sustain, they will not be sustained. Mars is also retrograde in Aries. Aries, its own home sign. And we know Mars is the god of war. So, and also action. So it's that energy that wants to be put outward, but because it's retrograde, it has no, you know, any kind of outward action is going to be actually destructive, because the retrograde means you have to come inside. So any kind of actions happening during this year, it's best to direct it into towards your inner world, and that's when you're going to have some constructive changes for the better. Also, the North Node is in Gemini. The North Node and South Node shifted the zodiac sign from Cancer and Capricorn into Gemini and Sagittarius. So the evolutionary trajectory of our collective is in learning how to listen. So those are the little kind of intro. So now let's go back, like what are those three planets of power? What do they mean, and why they are so important? Well, to begin with, so we have Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter. They all, in one way or another, relate to some sort of, you know, they work with power structures or energetic powers. So Pluto, we know, and by the way, when I call planets in astrology, we call Pluto a planet. We also call Sun and Moon a planet. That's, you know, an astrological term. That's not astronomy related. So Pluto, being a kind of a very transformative planet, it brings energies of like an energy of Shiva. That's how I see it. An energy of destruction. You know, we have Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer and builder of more, and Shiva is the destroyer. So Pluto having that very strong energy of demolishing anything that's not working, transforming, death and rebirth, right? Because that's kind of part of one part. If we're talking about life, we also have to talk about death, because they come together. It's in our um, in our human existence, we take one but we dislike another, even though they are like kind of, you know, they cannot be separated. But so then death goes into shadow, and that's where Pluto comes in. It's working with a subconscious. It's also called archetypically as a god of the underworld. It's something that contains a lot of power, a lot of energy. It could also be related to anything that's hidden, occultism, but also someone's finances, anything that's hidden and kind of under and has this big power and potential. Now, the Saturn is a planet probably many of you know about. We call it the Lord of Karma. It's a lord of this world, a lord of this 3D world. It rules, governs time and space. So it's very much about cause and effect. When working with it, it requires time, it requires commitment, it requires you to be accountable, to take a responsibility and accountability to, you know, for your life. It is also about traditions and life lessons. So it's this, I associate it with this kind of a grandfather that we have that is a little bit old style, but he knows better, and like he kind of comes after you and he's like, look, I told you, you should be, you know, you should be more serious, you should be more disciplined, etc. So that's why Saturn has a bad rap, you know, among people, because it's not giving you, it's not letting you skip any steps. It's asking you to really like, okay, if you didn't learn it now, you're going to relearn it. It's about time and space. It has eternity until you actually get the lesson, and then you move forward. And then also Jupiter, and Jupiter is the biggest planet that we know, right, in our solar system. And it has the energy of explosion, expansion, exposure. It's also dealing with wealth and abundance and knowledge and truth. It's like a truth-seeking planet. So imagine you have this transformative Pluto, this constricting Saturn that governs the systems and structures and hierarchies, and you have Jupiter together with that exposing things, expanding them so they're better seen for others, and possibly bringing abundance, and possibly bringing knowledge and high states of knowledge. All of this is happening in Capricorn in 2020, and that's kind of the these three planets set the tone of the year. The entire 2020 is kind of colored. Everything else that comes after it or along with it is an addition to these three planets, because they come together very rarely. And that's what I'm going to be moving on talking about. But I'd like to mention that Capricorn, the sign of Capricorn, that's where all these three planets meet. Capricorn by itself is, you know, it has this energy of status, of hierarchy, of, it could be even religious hierarchy. It could be corporate hierarchy, any kind of hierarchy, government, politics. So anything that holds the power, holds the tradition, that's the Capricorn. And you can see that Capricorn and Saturn have similar energies for a good reason, because Saturn is a ruler of Capricorn. So Saturn being at home in its own sign, Capricorn, meeting Pluto, the transformer, the destroyer, The one that looks into subconscious, that looks into your shadow, that's kind of like demolishing everything that's not real, with the Jupiter that's just exposing all of that, exposing the shadow, exposing the misuse of power, etc. Right? So that's big enough. It's a serious workshop, guys. It's a serious year, so can't really tweak that part much. So why am I saying that this is such a big year? You know, we've had transformations, we've had upheavals in the past as well. Well, it's more than that. Whenever the planets meet, they represent an end of a cycle. Whenever slow moving planets meet, they also represent end of a cycle, but they don't meet that often because it takes them much longer to go around the sun. So on our sky, those gatherings that we see don't happen very frequently. And in astrology, the way we learn it is we observe cycles. We go backwards into the history and see when this alignment happened and what happened in the history. That's how we learn astrology, and that's how we can kind of say what's possible to happen. So in the case with our planets that I just spoke about, and the grand cycles that are ending right now, we are seeing major events for this for the consciousness of the society and the world. Those changes leave a very deep impression for decades to come. It is not something like, oh man, this 3 months been tough. No, I'm talking about 500 years from now, people are going to be thinking of of the year 2020 and kind of, if they have history books, will be talking about that year. So, you know, our 3 months of hard times later on will not be really seen, but what's going to be seen is what had happened, you know, globally, and what kind of changes did it initiate it. And this year is a lot about, because like I said, this year is an end of cycles. So it is not the best time to start anything new unless whatever you are starting, you have been working on already, and it's just going to flourish by itself. So you won't need to push too much behind it. But other than that, it is a time to stay low and to just take things day by day, and to just kind of let the changes, let the transformations happen first, because a lot of what's happening right now related to change of your consciousness. And with the new consciousness, you will be creating the new future. If you will be using your old state of mind to create the future, things will fall apart later on, because they will not be a match energetically to the future. Now, so let's go a little bit deeper into those conjunctions. And like I said, we'll look at the history, and let's think of what happened when Pluto and Saturn met in the 20th century. So first of all, they meet about 36 years. They meet about every 36 years. So the last conjunction we had was in 1982, right? Before then, it was 1947 and 1914. Also, when they're kind of 180 degrees from each other, not when they meet at the sky in one point, but when they kind of opposite each other, those aspects are also very important. And those were the years of 2001, 1965, and 1931. So now let's try to remember in our history what happened during those years. So, you know, we had the 1914, the First World War began. You know, 1947, the end of the Second World War. 2001, of course, we know the 9/11 happened. 1965 is the Vietnam War and social justice movements. 1931, we were getting into the Great Depression and economy collapse. 1982, we were getting into this like new kind of age of electronics and internet and computers. So there's just a lot that's been happening, and those are major changes, and they brought major upheaval and transformation to the world. So now let's go a little bit, let's go further. Now let's talk about Pluto and Saturn conjunction in the sign of Capricorn, because that's what we have right now. We have the meeting in Capricorn, which, like I said, is a home of Saturn, and Capricorn by itself is a very serious zodiac sign. It has a very serious component to it. And like I said, it's about learning your lessons, and it's about government, it's about structures, it's about powers. So what happened when Pluto and Saturn met in Capricorn last time? That was in 16th century. I believe it was 1518, right? That's when we started seeing the separation of the Protestant church from Catholic church. There was, imagine the humanity before then. Catholic church was huge. And it was that kind of, it was the governing structure, it was what everybody was living under. And now you have Martin Luther, who is starting to criticize the church, and then delivering, the biblical knowledge to people who were illiterate, who couldn't read those things. This is major, right? Let's just try to imagine how much of a chaos that was created, how much of resistance it was created back then. So that was the start of reforms in Europe. The King Henry VIII separated from Rome. So there was a lot of grand changes happening in the 16th century at that time. Now, let's go even further. Let's find when Pluto, Saturn met also with the planets that I mentioned, which is the Jupiter. And the last time they met was in the 13th century. Not only they met with, Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter, those three power planets, they also met with the North Node. And let me remind you that this year they're meeting with the South Node. So we can see that the cycle that was beginning at that time of this first, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, North Node conjunction. And the reason I say beginning is because North Node is the trajectory of the future. North Node is our northern star. It's where we are shown collectively we need to move towards. So whatever changes were happening with Pluto, that Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter were creating, were actually for the, they were going along with the evolution of humanity, because they were together with the North Node. They were bringing the society, they were bringing the structures, the government structures, the politics into the area where it actually needed to go. So in 1984-85, we're seeing the trade via Silk Road is being really developed. There's this a kind of communication between East and the West. There's new finances, new banking system, urbanization of cities, strengthening of European monarchies, accumulation of wealth in particular by particular people, by particular groups, development of new structure of the world as we know it now. It was being created at that time, 1284. So what is it, 700 years ago? That is the cycle we are ending right now. Among many, we are ending many cycles. There's cycle within a cycle within a cycle, but I just wanted to bring you like really far back so that when you think of how hard your days are, you understand the grand scheme of what is happening. So, and let's look at what's going on right now in 2020. So first of all, I want to say that it's pretty much the year where the time came together, everything aligned, all the puzzle pieces came together, and some sort of process began. Some sort of process began that we will be seeing unfolding in the years to come. It is not something that we will like see come into fruition this year, because those are the grand changes. They are not happening within 1 year. They're happening within generations. So we have astrologically, the Pluto and Saturn met exactly on the sky on January 12th. And you would think, well, not much happened in January 12th, but because Saturn is the ruler of time, it is very slow. The changes that Saturn brings are slow, and those are the transformations that would start happening. And the thing is that we, on the sky, we see those planets kind of going back and forth. We call it retrograde. So they're retrograding through this year, meaning that they don't go too far from each other. So the entire year is has this the coloring of Saturn and Pluto coming together. So even though it only happened in January 12th, and what do we talk about? We talk about transformations of power structures, transformations of our roles, social roles. We see systemic issues rising to the surface. We see misuse of power, releasing all old beliefs. Remember what I mentioned is that this year, Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter are meeting together with the South Node. Now, I said that in the 13th century, they met together with the North Node. North Node was the trajectory where evolution, human evolution was happening, the collective evolution was happening. So whatever the changes were happening back then was bringing people towards, towards the great future, the great potential. And we saw a lot of things were being developed. Now these three planets are meeting with the South Node. South Node is the tail of the dragon. It's the release. It's the end. It's where we're coming from. It's what we're leaving behind. So now those structures and systems that we're building, and those economical structures that were building in 13th century are now coming to an end. Not within a year, but this is a year of initiating. Of course, like I said, there's a cycle within a cycle. We've seen crisis, economical crisis in 2008. That's when Jupiter and Pluto met in the past. So it's not like we're just stepping completely into the unknown, but now the process really turning. Now things are really shifting. So what happened with Jupiter and Pluto? So Jupiter and Pluto met exactly on the sky, meeting exactly on the sky 3 times this year. Again, because those planets are going retrograde this year, so they're kind of going one on top of another. And the first time it was April 4th. Then the next one is June 30th, and the following will be November 12th. So again, because those are great planets, huge planets, and Jupiter is a planet of exposure and expansion, then whatever the issues are that the Saturn and Pluto is kind of coming, is now changing, is showing there's a misuse of power. Now Jupiter is really exposing it. It's really making it visible. So I know around April, beginning of April, that's when, we had this, already the pandemic was going in very strongly. People started applying for unemployment. And because Jupiter and Pluto are very related to finances, distribution of wealth, financial crisis also, because like I said, last time they met was in 2007. And 2007, when was the first financial crisis, well, the latest one that we know, the big one that started to happen, and then it came into fruition 2008. We see corruption being exposed. And basically Jupiter and Pluto are showing us what needs adjusting. I don't want this workshop to feel like it's dark. It's actually great. Like I said, there is chaos and opportunities rising. And those people who have been working in integrity, who have been on this spiritual path, who have been centered, who have been kind of finding themselves and getting stronger and grounded in the values and in the truth, in the universal values, they actually have a lot of opportunities coming, rising this year and beyond. But we'll also see the polarization happening, where whatever is on the other side, whatever's been out of balance, whatever's been out of, out of balance, it's just going to fall off the wagon, but it's going to be very exposed greatly. And it's not going to be a one-day shift. Now, December 21st is when Saturn and Pluto, Saturn and Jupiter are exactly meeting on the sky. Again, like I said, they are next to each other and they affect each other all throughout this year, but the exact conjunction for Saturn and Pluto will be December 21st, 2020. We call in astrology this conjunction as a great conjunction. Saturn being kind of like the restrictive force, the disciplinary, Jupiter being the expansive force. When they come together, they may learn how to balance. They may learn how to not to go overboard and not to be too constrictive. So what's really important is that this year, at the end of the year, they will meet at 0 degrees Aquarius. They are moving into an air sign. Previously, from 1800, early 1800, Saturn and Jupiter met exclusively in the signs of Earth. And Earth is Virgo, Taurus, and Capricorn. And that's where Saturn and Jupiter spend most of the year this year, right? In the sign of Capricorn. But the conjunction is happening at 0 degrees Aquarius. And it is an air sign, and it shows us another change of cycles, great change of cycles of the last 200 years. What's been happening for the last 200 years? Well, with the Saturn and Jupiter being in Earth, we've been using fossil fuels. We've been using Earth resources a lot. And now we're moving. That's going to be, we have been moving already. Of course, we've been seeing different technology coming. But I could say that years to come this technology will become more affordable, will become more available. There will be more support behind them. It will be spreading easier, because we're now going to move into free energy, into something that's more ecologically sustainable. Aquarius is an air sign. If there's also air is associated with mental state, with technology, with innovation, communication, traveling. So we see that there will be some new technology related to internet, related to social media, to transportation, any kind of areas of communication and traveling. And but we have to also understand that Saturn, being the constrictive sign planet, will be putting some constrictions on our communication, transportation, traveling. Saturn went into Aquarius early in March. I think it was mid-March, 20th or something like that. It went into Aquarius. That's when and Aquarius is the sign of groups. Saturn is the sign of restrictions. So what happened then? A lot of us in the world went through this kind of a lockdown. So there were restrictions on groups. Then later in July, Saturn went back into Capricorn, and now it's coming back into Aquarius again early this year, later this year. So there's also restrictions to our communication, restrictions to our traveling. I think we've been seeing that. There's also censorship in a way, what can you speak and what you should not speak, what is politically correct, etc. That's all kind of coming together with this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction for 2020. Now, this is about Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto. I will kind of pause here, and let's see if anybody has any questions about those 3 planets. I will be drawing a kind of a culminative conclusion at the end to bring all the pieces together. But If anyone had questions about this particular alignments, this is the time to ask. So I guess not. So let me talk about something else, which is really interesting, which is not being talked much. We have Neptune, and Neptune is in tension, and for those who like astrology, is in square to lunar nodes. What does it mean? So first of all, it's in square, in the orb of square from August 2020 to February 2021. Neptune is a very weird, interesting, I guess, maybe not weird, but it is a very interesting planet. It's hazy, it's illusionary, it's related to the sign of Pisces. It is something that is um, it's kind of like, it's very dualistic, because you know Pisces has two fish. It's either you are enlightened and you levitating, or you are on the other side of you know, being completely lost in an illusion of maybe substance abuse, or any kind of mental illness could also fall under Neptune. So it could be kind of like from the observer, from the outside, seen as an illusionary planet, or planet of illusion. So now it is also related to spread. It's spreading something. Neptune has this kind of quality because it's a water. In astrology, we can call it that right now we have an adaptation period. What's interesting is that when we see the square of Neptune, there could be some virus coming through, but also virus is some sort of adaptation to a new reality, to a new something that is yet to come. Now, the easier ride will have those that will be more open to adapt. It will be harder for those who are more firm and fixed with their lifestyle, with their beliefs, with just like with their being. So we see that during this year, the groups of people that been compromised are the people that are elderly, or that have compromised immune system. Those people are much more difficult to adapt to new reality, to the new air that's coming in. We can't even explain what it is. So my advice would be to just learn how to adapt to these times, and not try to make a big conclusion as to, oh, I know what's going on, because that's another that's us again grasping into something and making it fixed. Things are changing. We don't know until February 2021. Right now, the times we will be seeing a lot of chaos around us, and I'll talk more about the fall. The fall is a crazy time. The better if we are kind of saying, you know, we definitely, it's important to meditate. It's important to do your sadhana, whatever spiritual practice you have, because whatever's going to be happening outside will look like a crazy theater. People will be getting lost in illusions. We will be getting lost in illusions. That's why it's better to be a little reserved and question yourself before you think you already know what's going on. But we're going through an evolution leap. And again, of course, evolution, humanity won't get through an evolution in a couple of months, but it is something that is really triggering it. You know, with this shutdown, we've been asked to slow down, and then the Pluto is rising and bringing different shadows, bringing aspects of us that we didn't want to see, or that we didn't even know about, because they were painful, they were hard to understand, they were hard to see. Now it's all coming into our face. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it is part of our life, and we really need to learn to integrate it into our life. The more we're resistant, the more we will be being taken out of the center and feel various circumstances kind of pushing our life around. And that's also what I mean when I say that waking up into a dream and then understanding that you're still dreaming, and then waking up into another dream and understand that you were dreaming back at that time. That's don't think you got it. Don't think you know what's going on, because then you will wake up and you will be like, woo, I was so immature. And then you will wake up again and again and again. Now, let's talk about our personal planets. And the personal planets are, we have, of course, Sun, Moon, Venus, Mars, and Mercury. Sun and Moon never go retrograde. Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year, and we usually, even if we're not astrology gurus, we kind of know about Mercury, because again, Mercury has a bad rap because it's kind of like messing up with your technology and with your plans and your transportation. But I'd like to talk about Venus and Mars, because they go retrograde. Venus about every 18 months and Mars about every 2 years, and the fact that they're happening this year all together with everything else is just adding the intensity. So what does it mean to have a personal planet retrograde? Well, retrograde, meaning it's a time for do everything reevaluate, revision, reassess, release, go inward. Basically, it's not about starting something new. It's about kind of compiling what you've got, you know, fixing up, you know, making sure everything, you're not carrying anything old, anything that doesn't align with you anymore, kind of releasing anything old so that you can start into the new. That's why Mercury retrograde is so feared by people, because Mercury rules our mind, and our mind always going forward. It just wants to make plans. It wants to have everything to be okay. It just wants life to be as it plans it to be. And then when Mercury retrograde happens, and we kind of like ask to pause, we don't like it. And then the more we push forward, the more we brought into one place with possibly some uncomfortable circumstances happening to us, because we are not willing to listen to the times and what they're asking for from us. We're just with our preconceived notion trying to move forward and make life happen. In this case, with retrograde, it's not about making it happen, it's just about answering to it. It's about listening to it. So now Venus is an archetype of love. It's a goddess of love. We know it rules relationships, it rules our values, our skills, also projects and money. And they actually kind of come together, because with our values and our skills, we bring the money, and how we, you know, we spend our money on what we value. And it also has the yin energy, right? So it's more kind of like a passive, but not in a negative way, passive energy. The retrograde for that happened from early May until almost end of June. So there was a time of that was pulling us into our relationship. We're considering our relationship projects, perhaps coming into different values, maybe dropping something off, and kind of finding something new. Usually when we start new relationships during Venus retrograde, those relationships usually are to show us something about ourselves that is still not working, just to kind of make it clear. It is usually not the relationship that will last for a long time, and that's okay. I don't want to program anything for anybody, but it's kind of the general trajectory. Just go with your life, whatever your life is taking you. But it is oftentimes showing us something that hasn't been working, that we're keep carrying, that is no longer serving us, and we just need to learn to let it go. And then Mars is a planet opposite to Venus, with its energy, with its archetype. It's a god of war, right? We know it. It's the planet of action, of drive. It's of vitality. It's something that wants to produce physical results, wants to be able to create change outside it. So it is a young energy. It is a masculine energy. And what happens when Mars goes retrograde, and by the way, it went retrograde on September 9th, and it's going to be in retrograde until November 13, I believe. But we have to also remember that we have this sort of, we call it a shadow period, basically when the planets start having the effect of retrograde before, like 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after that period, about that time, even for Mars even longer. So the energy of Mars starting to really pick up as a retrograde at the early August, and it will continue until January as it's coming out of Aries at that time. So for Mars being a retrograde planet, he just doesn't like it. He wants to move out. He wants to move forward. He wants to make things happen. He wants to initiate things, to lead, to start. But the retrograde is just bringing all of this kind of, all of the energy inward. So any kind of external, any kind of action in order to change the external reality will be destructive, will not be successful. You will either have to put a lot of energy into kind of moving it forward. Things will just be resistant. This process, if you start a new company, some things are just not coming through on time, and these people are delayed and these people are delayed. This is the sign to kind of pause, to stand, and any kind of changes, do them within. Mars retrograde is about making change to your inner world, because retrograde is about inner. So making change to your inner world. Also, because it's a vitality planet, we may feel, especially when Mars went stationary at the beginning of September, and when it's going to come out of retrograde at mid November, we will feel tired. We may not have enough energy. There's also an energy, it's a time prone to any kind of conflict, a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of, just kind of petty, kind of conversations that may bring into like, wait, how did we end up here? Why are we even fighting? We don't even know. Things like that. So be careful, watch for that. Better to be more reserved than to try to exert your energy outward at this time. Now, for I've been talking a lot about all this serious stuff, and like I said, this year is serious. I'm not going to be, kind of undermining that part, but I'd like to offer the solutions. Where should we direct our energy? Because we're humans, we like to kind of be, our minds, they like to actively be involved in something. So where can we be involved? What can we really change? So where does the possible solution lie? Well, let's look at our lunar nodes. And I mentioned already that the lunar nodes are our, it's our future and our past sort of thing, right? It's our foundation and our guiding light, our northern star. So now at the beginning of May, the nodes shifted into the new axis. Gemini and Sagittarius, they're always opposite of each other. That's why they are, in the opposite zodiac signs. And they move backwards. So they shifted into 29-degree Gemini. For those of you who know your chart, it's a good time to look, where is your 29-degree Gemini to around 20-degree Gemini, because that's where the area of your life that you want to be focusing on. So, and the nodes are going to be there until the 2022, early of that year. So what does it mean? So we're at risk of having this Sagittarius energy, meaning that, anything that's we kind of know really well that may no longer serve us, but because it's such a comfort zone, it's something that we've done in the past many times. This is, the Sagittarius energy, the South Node energy. So what Sagittarius could be when it's imbalanced? It could be carrying the righteousness, seeking for one truth, and or claiming that this is the truth, this is the right side of the this is the justice, this is the be on the right side of the history. It is really bringing you to this binary trap that I was talking at the beginning of this presentation, where you have this kind of questions either or that are falsely stated, because they only offer you two options and claiming that there's nothing else, and the solution usually lies somewhere outside of these two seemingly the only options that we have available. Also, because Sagittarius is a fire sign, it's impulsivity, it's emotional reactivity. So any kind of watch for social media is huge at that, where you kind of watch a little video and then it triggers your emotion, and then on that emotion you do a repost, or you talk to somebody. So watch out for that, because that's the old Sagittarius energy. It's like, oh, I with this 5-second video I've seen the truth. Now it kind of I'm fueled by the emotions, and I'm gonna get something out that may be destructive and not based in love, right, but based in separation. Now what is it that we need to be developing? The energies of Gemini, the Gemini archetype is the twins, I'm sorry. So what we're developing is this ability to listen, ability to just be present with something that's outside of you, to be open to different ideas, to be collecting, because Gemini is an air sign, so it's an intellectual sign, to collect factual information before you make some sort of conclusion, and not to just be driven by emotions and impulsivity that the Sagittarius will keep carrying you. It's widening your perspective. It's seeing the bigger picture. It's seeing the truth in all who speak. And also understanding that because North Node is something that we don't have, our muscles haven't worked really well in it. So we don't have much practice in it. So even though we will, it's important for us to consciously keep coming back to learn how to listen, to be open. We have to understand that we'll be unconsciously being brought back to the Sagittarius quality. Don't judge yourself. Just come back when you are conscious, when you're aware that you've been playing out the old, kind of old patterns of behavior. Keep coming back to the new, and understand that you will not know everything. We probably have no idea what's going on. We really will get a better picture of what these years are all about once the North Node left Gemini, which will be in 2022. We'll get a little bit more of understanding what really happened, and then more and more we'll be understanding it as the years progress. Right now we're in that soup. We can't really taste it because we're in it. We those vegetables that are in a soup. So remember that you don't know, we don't know. Right now people are trying to come with different solutions for different issues, and if this is your inner call, absolutely go for it. But if you feel that you're just being brought into it because of the shame and guilt and fear, then watch for that. The shame and guilt and fear are the tools that govern our society. So those are the old tools that we are releasing with the Saturn Pluto Jupiter conjunction. These ways of behavior, these ways of thinking, and ways of manipulation and misusing power are becoming an old day. So become more conscious, and the way you help everybody else is that you become more conscious. Now, let's talk a little bit about the 2020, the fall of 2020. I did mention that it's going to be even more intense than all the time before that. And the reason for that being is that now Mars is going retrograde. Mars is in Aries, it's in its home sign. It wants to be active. It wants to be an initiator. And because it's not given that opportunity, because there's always some sort of resistance, because it's in retrograde, it's about going inward, it will continue going outward, but with distraction. It will continue kind of like, you know, there's times of high intensity, of high tension and anxiety, because it also going to be squaring, being in tension with this, the three planets of power. While it's going retrograde, it's going to be squaring those three powers of power. So there will be some tension with the power structures. And it does not necessarily, in your personal life, it doesn't necessarily showing as some sort of organization, because in your areas of your of life, in your personal chart, it could shift into, let's say, at home, power structures at home, or in your relationship, or related to how your day goes, or your health and things like that. So you know, the specifics would be seen by looking at your personal chart, but in any sense, in any way, it's something about our old way of operation, and kind of being against it, but not knowing the exact solution to it, or trying to come up with a solution. But we remember that Sagittarius will be showing us something that's not exactly that. We can't really know what the correct answer for problems that are of, you know, centuries long. We will be getting through it, and we will be finding the solutions as we go. So all of this is not pointless, but if you can prevent going into conflict because of some ideology, because Sagittarius rules ideology and your truth, where you're claiming I'm right and you're wrong. I know the truth. Remember, you're not in this human body. We all have limited perception because we are limited beings in this body. If you go into this state of beyond body and mind, then you will know the truth. But that's a different, probably once you come back, you will not want to talk to anybody and try to prove your case anyways. So highest intensity of the year, extreme tension and anxiety. You're prone to conflicts, prone to accidents, prone to any kind of mistakes. Don't waste your energy on something that will be destructive. Expect unexpected. Don't start anything new. Well, all of those are guidelines that astrologers would tell you. You are your own you know, guiding light in your life. So you kind of listen to what's inside, you know better your personal situation with all the circumstances. But generally speaking, those would be the strong suggestions, that if you will be starting something new, it will be hard to put it through. And then if it's moving through, it will be with some sort of complications, and then it may get stalled later, may have to be redone later. Also because this fall is Mercury is in retrograde as well. So whatever is happening in the fall will most likely have to be redone. And Mercury is coming out of retrograde on the day of the election in the United States. It's not good news. Anything that's, you know, will be happening at that time is not going to turn out the way we want it. Is not going to turn out the way we expected. With Mars being in this kind of fiery mode, there are protests, there are, tension, there are conflicts, there's extreme polarization. And it will be clearing by the end of 2020 with the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, but it's not going to be all gone, because 2021 and beyond things that we planted right now will come into fruition. But in terms of this kind of like inner war, we want to put energy out, but we can't. It will be clearing at that time because Mars is going to start moving direct. So how do we find balance in this intense time? Well, we have to make internal changes, because Mars is about vitality and about your physical body and about physical drive. It's good time to exercise, but be careful, watch for that. So it's good to it will be a good time to get into shape, to take care of your own body, mind, everything related to you. But be careful not to over exercise so that you don't get any kind of injury. It is not a good time to have any kind of planned operations, because again, Mars could get things not very well done, and then Mercury retrograde right now. But anything that's kind of like in you go using the approach of taking the middle path, do some exercises, take care of yourself. Absolutely important, regular relaxation practice. Anything that you do that will help you to come back to the center. Stay centered and help others. The only way you can help others, the only way you can be a little bit objective is when you stay in centered, when you are in control of your emotions. Everything right now around you will be pulling on your emotions, will be triggering your emotions. So know that, and then when something is happening that is kind of taking you out of your center, it's a good idea to take a pause. It's a good idea to not reply right away, to sit on it, to sleep on it. Okay. Now, so that's fall 2020, and like I said, clearing by the end of December. We're going to have eclipse season, November and December in Sagittarius and Gemini. So, and again, expect this rise of like, oh, you don't understand me, you're not listening to me, things like that, this kind of energy, because it's all about, kind of truth-seeking, conversation, creation, etc. So listen more, speak less. And a few notes about 2021. So whatever has been happening right now, like I said, it started the process. There is no way back. A process of an end of many centuries. We now going to start seeing those seeds sprouting and opportunities rising even more in 2021. Those people who have been on some path already for a long time, who've been working diligently, Saturn will reward you. And you may have started experiencing already this year in some areas of your life. If you're staying with integrity, if you are committed to whatever you chose to be committed to, and it's aligned with your soul, which is the Pluto, then you will be seeing more opportunities rising. Any kind of areas of healing, of delivering some information that's not polarized. And remember, not either or, it's both and more. Any areas related to that will be brought up with this expansion of Jupiter. Will shine the light on those, any healers, any kind of educators, anything related to helping people to get in touch with themselves and get in touch with the, with the aspects of themselves that they haven't seen. It's all going to be supported by the energies, even this year, but next year even more, especially after December 2020 and December 21st. We will start seeing more external changes. We will also start seeing more external changes to the government structure, to the corporation, to the politics, to all of that. We will be seeing it more in 2021. And like I said, there are blessings. There are blessings that we can harvest even now and more later, but we have to be listening. We have to be adapting. Remember, the Neptune is asking us to be very mutable. We are in this kind of like washing machine right now. When we will come out of it, we will be very different. But because we're in it, we can't really understand it. So my advice is to take it day by day, to have personal practice that can bring you to the center so that you can listen to your inner guiding light, your inner voice, and follow that. Follow where it tells you to be, because oftentimes that light's been suppressed by the system that's been telling you that you have to do 1, 2, 3 in order to. And those systems are collapsing now. The main system that's rising right now is your integrity and your inner voice. So if you follow in that, then you will be in a center and you will be in an eye of the hurricane. You will be protected. You will be on a safe island. And more than that, you're not just going to be this kind of like, oh, I don't care what's going on with the rest, I'm good. The more you're in your center, the more you are at peace within yourself. Because remember, the changes that are happening right now have to be addressed internally. The more you will be in peace with yourself and with all conflicting aspects of yourself, the more you will be blessed with, sharing that peace with others. We cannot win war by going into war. So it's not about going into war. It's not about fighting for what's right. My personal opinion, like I said, right, based on astrology and how I perceive it, it's about listening, taking all information in, connecting with others, being open-minded, knowing that there's a whole lot we still don't know. And with this human mind, we will never know. So this is the time we're creating our future, even though it feels like, there's not so much of external action happening, and it should not be necessarily, but we're planting the seeds. And like I said, 2021 and beyond we will be reaping those results. There will be more blessings for the hard work that many of us have been really doing. And if you are just waking up to those kind of aspects of yourself that feel in conflict with each other, then this is a tremendous time to start that healing process. There's a lot of healing that's happening right now and will go forward. So those people who have been on this journey will be assisting those who are waking up right now. So, it's just that kind of circle of motion that the universe is based on. So those are these are the advice that I would suggest for people on how to handle 2020 and beyond. Have an introspective mind, go inward, question, collect factual information, be an observer, watch your emotions, surrender to change. The process have began. Now everything came together. It's moving. You want it or you're not. If you surrender, you go with the flow. You don't waste too much energy on fighting back. It will be easier for you to move through this process. And it could be not just easy, it could be, with Jupiter, you can have a lot of abundance coming through it in any different areas of your life, financially, romantically, just with how, with self-realization. This is the time, for many of us who've been feeling like we are not from this time and what are we doing over here? And this is the time. Now we are entering that time. And keep seeing the bigger picture. Try to zoom out of any particular conflict. Try, everything is, divinely orchestrated. How much do you trust? How much do you surrender to that. So that's why having that, you know, deep connection with the spirit within yourself is extremely important. And this is something that I'd like to end. When I speak about structures and old power structures, see areas of your life where you've been given away your power to some other something, power outside of you. That's Capricorn. That's being changed. So are you being given out your power to government too much? Oh, they need to fix my problem. Are you giving out your power to some religious organization that you're like, oh, can you tell me, can you guide me through this? Remember, all of that is inside of you. All of that is inside of you. You have everything. You have potential for all of it. Those power structures, systems, that's why they've been corrupted, is because we are just kind of like blindly, giving away our power. So have you been more critical with where you put your power? Understandably, we are all living together. We want to, we don't want to be kind of dealing with everything. Like, we don't want to be growing our food and at the same time, doing something else. Like, we want to collaborate, but with a critical mind and understanding that you are in the center of your universe ultimately. So Pluto will be bringing, and because next year Uranus is going to be squaring in 2021. Uranus is going to be squaring Jupiter and Saturn, that will be going through Aquarius. That just shows that a lot of innovation is possible, and also a lot of sudden changes, drastic changes to anything that you've been kind of stuck to for too long. Anything that you are not allowing to be released right now in 2020, especially in the fall, later it's going to be taken away from you by force, because Uranus is a planet of transform, or it's a planet of revolution, of drastic change, of sudden change. But it is also a planet of innovation and of a higher mind. So you choose by your actions right now, you choose what level of consciousness, what kind of reality you're setting up for yourself. There are levels in which, there's a higher octave and a lower octave. So neither of the planets, none of what's happening right now is either good or bad. It just is. And there are different opportunities that are coming based on what your energy is matched to. So have an introspective mind, surrender to change, and see the bigger picture. And I'll end here with this official part of the workshop. You can, from now, we can, go into Q&A. And then, like I said, if there's no other questions that you will have, we can, I can pull a card, depending on what time it is. I can pull the card for the collective. We still have quite enough time. And if you want to work personally with me, I'm open to that, and I love to do that. So you can reach out. Okay, thank you.